Hey guys, what's up? It's RareCoin, and in today's video, I want to talk a lot about some of RuneScape's worst mechanical features. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean the things that work the way they do in the game that were just designed in a bad way, and I hope to offer a couple solutions to some of these mechanical problems that pretty much every player will face. Now, the first one is something that Tasty actually just brought up in his last video, and that's boss dead clicking, and it's bosses, monsters, whatever it may be. Basically, when you kill a monster, all of the options stay after you've killed it until the animation finishes for it despawning after you've killed it. This also works the opposite at things like Zora and Nex, but mostly Zora, where when Zora comes out of the water, there is about 2 ticks where you can click on the boss, but it does absolutely nothing. And my solution to this is to make an attack monster queue line of code that says if you click to attack a monster and it's in like an invulnerable state, then as long as you do no other actions other than maybe like running around potentially, you would then attack the boss on the first tick. So if you don't eat any food, you don't changing prayer doesn't interrupt stuff, so you could still change your prayers if you wanted to. But this would basically allow you to attack the boss right away without spam clicking on it before the fight starts or clicking on it accidentally when it dies. I think these kind of things should be worked on and kind of fixed so that the average player can have a smoother experience. Now, the second thing I would change, it might be a little bit of a controversial topic, but I think we should remove logging out of the wilderness. And maybe this isn't like a you can never log out of the wilderness thing, but the halfway solution is to make it so that if you interact with something in the wilderness, you can't log out for, let's say, like 30 seconds instead of the normal like 15 for getting attacked by a player or whatever it is. Now, what this would allow is that, let's say there's someone mining rune rocks in the wilderness or whatever, and somebody wants to hunt these people. Well, if you just mine a rune rock, whether you're getting attacked or not, you wouldn't be able to log out of the wilderness right away because you've interacted with something within the wilderness. And I think this would create a much better environment for people to interact with the content the way it was intended to be interacted with. The wilderness was not intended to be a world hopping, stay away from cat and mouse thing. It was supposed to be a place where you could go out with as much stuff as you are willing to risk, go try and take somebody else's stuff as much as they were willing to risk, and it was basically a free-for-all where you knew you were going into a free-for-all, but everyone was there to fight each other, and that was the true nature of the wilderness. And I think it would bring it back a little bit because people would not just go somewhere to like mine rune rocks with no gear anymore. They might bring black d'hide and something because if someone attacks them, they might want to like fight back so that they have a better chance of getting away. And I think it would promote a more healthy balance to the way the wilderness was intended to interact with the game. Now, this next mechanic at base level seems pretty good. It seems like just another mechanic thrown into the game, and that is the Nightmare of Ashihama. In one of the phases, it actually changes what your character's prayers do, and to me, this seems like a bad mechanic. Because if you were in any other game and you took a character's keybind and you took their invulnerability for 2 seconds move and you switched it with their heal over time spell, which switched with their deal 30% damage spell, that is a huge like game problem that your game has to be so hard you have to change what someone's controls do on them in order to make it hard enough for people to feel like they're being challenged. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, what they could have done was they could have made the Nightmare of Ashihama basically like shout, "Oh, I'm cursing you to see something else," or whatever, and then they could have made it so like the range attacks were actually mage and the mage attacks were actually range, and then therefore you would have to do the right prayer anyways, but you would have to still pay attention to know that the range looking attacks are actually mage attacks now, and the mage looking attacks are actually range attacks now, instead of changing the actual controls of the player themselves. Uh, and that's just one thing that annoys me about the boss itself. Now, this next mechanical issue with RuneScape that I want to talk about is pathing. And how pathing works in old school RuneScape is when you click on a monster, your character will check west and then east, and then it will check north or south depending on like the direction the monster is and how close it is to you and stuff like that. And so one thing that this interrupts is PVMing a lot. So the biggest instance of this is in the next room. You can go like 13 tiles away from Nex if it's standing in the middle, and if you're standing where one of the minions is standing and Nex is like just barely off center but like away, it can actually end up making you run like 8 or 9 tiles to attack the boss instead of one tile like directly in front of you that would move you closer enough to the boss to attack. And so my solution for this mechanic is to just create a check when you click to attack a monster, whether or not there is a tile within range of hitting the monster from a direct line of path from tiles. And this would literally just be drawn as like a diagonal line or whatever. And if any of these paths along east or west would make it so that you could attack the monster with a less amount of tiles stepped, then it would move you to that tile that's closest to you that you could still reach the monster on when you clicked them. And what this would let you do is basically, if you were standing, like let's say in the far corner of the next room, and then you click on the next boss, well, you can't run straight through the floor that doesn't exist. But so normally the game will path you west and you'll go running around the entire circle all the way to like the straightaway T area, and then it will like run you into that T area to try and attack the boss once you have a straight path line. And so my solution is that once your character decides to path toward attacking a monster, it would then move to the closest tile. So if you're ranging something with a T-bow, a T-bow's distance is 10. If it's going to make you run 6 tiles west and a tile south, or a tile southwest, it will dictate the tile southwest as the closest tile to you to do the action you were trying to accomplish. And that's my solution to fixing the pathing issue in old school RuneScape. The last mechanical issue with OSRS I want to talk about today is multi-way combat areas. And this is multi-way combat areas all over the game, but also in the wilderness too, specifically more. And what I would like to see is, instead of having 2 little swords that appear once you step into a multi-way combat, I would like to see some kind of like clouds or something like hovering, that you know when you're switching from one area to another and you run through these very light clouds that are just kind of see-through, you know, and don't really interrupt your view or whatever, but once you run through them, you know you're switching from single way to multi. If you're in a single, you know you're going to multi, and if you're multi, you know you're going to single because you're running across the clouds, kind of thing. Now, what this would do is this would just give people more of a visual indicator that, hey, you're about to run into a multi-way combat, even if there's not a bunch of monsters that can attack you right off the bat to indicate that you're getting attacked by a bunch of monsters, or that you can be. And I think this would be a great update for the game because it just helps give information to the player so that if someone's like, well, I don't want to cross like a multi-way combat line, they don't find that out after they've crossed the multi-way combat line. Now, these are just some of the mechanical things within old school RuneScape that I've kind of noticed while playing it and have annoyed me the most, and I thought got put about the wrong way, or they just never really got fixed potentially. And if we bring enough awareness to some of these issues, maybe one day Jagex will start working on fixing some of these issues. If you don't agree with anything or my solutions, leave a comment down below. Let me know, how could you fix some of these issues with the mechanics of old school, or maybe you don't think they need to be fixed, and let me know why. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to leave a like, it really does help, and I'll see you in the next one.